With election night closing up, I wanted to review some of the data from the early voting numbers. That way we can see how the situation is going on the key different states and see what kind of estimates we might be able to make. Maybe some predictions, what we think of the current situation based on all the data that we have, and see if we can actually make a reasonable prediction, even though from everything that I have seen, everything looks really, really, really close. So let's get to the numbers, shall we? So we're going to begin here with the numbers that we have from ABC from the early voting data, and we're going to review each of the states to see what's going on. So I'm picking at random. Let's get started with Georgia. Georgia right now, the early voting seems to slightly leaning Republican, 48 to 45. But we have a 7% that we don't know which direction it's going. That 7% can overtake whatever small lead Republicans have, or make the lead a lot bigger. My concern would be the gender. Gender, especially women, tend to vote around 55 to 60% for women. So we can go scroll down in the demographics and we can see how the 2020 election went, and we can see that 54% of women voted for Biden. So it can give us more or less an idea what we might be able to see, but the difference is 2%. And keep in mind also, Republicans tend to vote more on election day, so these numbers are subject to change significantly, and the Democrats tend to vote by mail or early voting. But I mean, I would say based on these numbers, those are good numbers for Republicans, and they want to see it in Georgia. So hopefully, with the turnout on election day, this gap might increase. Now let's go to North Carolina. North Carolina, it has that controversy with Mark Robinson, who's running for governor. And these numbers that we see here do not help at all. Because we have as many, even though Republicans have a 2% lead, others or unaffiliated voters, they also have a 34%. That can change the whole thing significantly, because 34%, it's huge. And if we scroll down on the demographic side, so we can see on this state, 53% of the women voted for the Democratic Party versus 46. And let's go up here by gender. There's a 2% difference. So let's see how it ends up being. I think what I think is going to happen with North Carolina, I think Mark Robinson is going to lose the governor election, and I think Trump might be able to pull it through. But I could be wrong. Let's go to Arizona. Arizona, these numbers are very good. Very good for Republicans. For anyone that wants Donald Trump to win, those are really good numbers. 42, around a 9% gap over the Democrats. That's very good. But the other problem is the independent voting could make a huge difference. And this is one thing that I've seen. Most people tend to vote for the parties, but the independents, whenever they switch to vote for the other party, that's what tends to lean the other person to win the election. So people underestimate the power of the independent voter, and that could make a big difference. And going on the gender side, 48 to 46, 43, that is definitely a significantly closer difference. Only a 5% difference. That's very good. But let's look at history. Quite interesting. In Arizona, the difference is not as big as other states. Only 51% of women versus 48%. Meaning, these numbers could be actually a lot better for Republicans. And regarding the U.S. Senate, man, I know many people like Carrie Lake, but I think she has lost multiple elections, very close ones. There's definitely concerns about Maricopa County and how much they always take forever to count their votes. I always make that joke. It's the election is going to be over. We're going to be celebrating New Year's, and Maricopa County is still going to be counting votes. But the Democrat might have a lead on that election. Let's see what happens then. Then we go to Nevada. Nevada, which tends to be the most Democrat state. And these numbers look very good again for Republicans. Early voting with a lead, that is very good. But the independent voting is huge, 27%. 27%, it could go either way. It could go either way. On the case of Nevada, I think it's still close, but I think Trump is going to be able to pull it through. I that's my gut feeling, based on the numbers that I have seen, some early voting data. I cannot provide all the data that I have seen on this video, but I just have the feeling based on the early numbers that I have seen when it comes to registration, when it comes to the polling, all that aggregate, I think Republicans might be able to pull it through slightly. It's going to be close. And on the case of the gender difference, so 44 to 44, that's very interesting. And on the voting for Nevada is 54 to 44. That seems to be mostly the trend is usually between 54 and 60% difference. But again, Republicans do vote significantly heavier on election day, so subject to change. Let's see what happens there. Now we're going to Michigan. Michigan, this is also very good numbers for Republican on a, I would say this is a state that Donald Trump won on a close race back in 2016. And he did lose it. He did lose it on 2020. But this might be really good for what I see for Donald Trump. I still think Michigan is going for the Democrats. I don't think that Donald Trump is going to pull Michigan through. I mean, let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Because at the end, based on all the predictions, all the analysts that I've seen, all the data, polling, I mean, you can. There's sufficient data to say that I think Donald Trump is gonna pull many of the swing states. But what about if the people don't turn out? What about all the people that are meant to vote do not vote for X, Y, or Z? That could change the whole thing, because even though their polling was correct, it could also affect who actually goes to vote. So let's see what happens then. So let's check the gender difference, 54 to 45. And on election day, 57 to 43, meaning just the early numbers, it even gets better if we just contrast it with the 2020 election. I know we can compare it also as well with 2016, but from 2016 to 2024, many years has passed. So I think demographics has changed, people have moved, people have changed parties. That's why I'm trying to use these numbers, even though maybe an average between them two, around 55% is good. So seeing this, 55 to 45, and the party affiliation being so close for Donald Trump, with Republicans voting a lot earlier, I think Trump might be able to steal Michigan. He might, but who knows? Let's see. So let's jump to the other state of Wisconsin. I think on the Wisconsin side, even though Trump might be able to pull a hair victory here, I think he's gonna lose Wisconsin. That's one of the states that I'm like, I highly doubt that he's gonna be able to get away with Wisconsin. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I mean, a 10% lead with 40% of the vote being independent, who knows where these people voted for. If they lean a particular direction, they're whatever the independents lean is definitely going to define the state. If they lean slightly Democrats, I think they're still gonna win, because even though the turnout from Republicans is gonna be better on election day, 40% is a lot. 40% it's a lot. And let's compare on the gender side. So we got 50 to 43. That's interesting. 50 to 43. The problem is the independent definitely obscures what I wanted to contrast in this case. So here we got similar numbers, 56 to 40 to 53 as well. The numbers are not that far, and as I mentioned before, Donald Trump won a close race here. The same way Biden, even though had a healthier lead, that's not so much of a big difference, because that's a 0.06. So Biden won with a smaller margin in 2020 than Donald Trump won it in 2016. And let's get to the last state, the one that I think is going to make the biggest difference in the election, which is Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania at the moment, 57 to 33. I think Democrats, for the most part, will feel very good seeing these numbers. And let's compare with the gender. So, funny enough, the gender to the registered party is very close. There's only a 1% difference. That's quite interesting. But we have a percentage of the independent plus election day. That might make a difference. But these numbers look good for Democrats, especially early. And this is one thing that I was trying to explain to you guys on the previous on the video about the jokes about Puerto Rico. Look at the percentage of Hispanics that voted for Biden. 69%. When you're going to win a close election, like for example, Trump won a close one here, Biden had a healthier margin. This state, it's going to be already difficult as it is. You don't want any drama to make it more difficult for you. That's the point that I was trying to deliver on the video. But maybe because I was feeling sick, I made it too short, and the message was not delivered across. That's why I made a follow-up video on that. But Pennsylvania, man, I wouldn't know what to call it here. I wouldn't know what to call it here. I've seen some numbers, people saying, hey, I think Pennsylvania might be the definition of a toss-up. Even though these numbers look really good for Democrats, we have to see at the end how much of a difference Republicans are able to recover on election day, and what percentage of the independents actually vote for the opposite party. Because again, all this could change. Just because people are registered a Democrat doesn't mean they're gonna vote Democrat, and vice versa. It could go either way. So that's one thing that I want people to understand. Just because you see Democrat, that doesn't mean all this 57% vote, it's 100% Democrat. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. And if that is the case, then with the 270, what is it that I'm seeing the election going through? So I'm personally seeing Arizona slightly lean Republican. I am also seeing Nevada slightly lean Republican. I am seeing Wisconsin going with the Democrats with a small margin. And I'm seeing Michigan as well. Going with the Democrats. I am seeing Republicans keeping Georgia and North Carolina, and 2 points away, I think Donald Trump is gonna flip Pennsylvania, and this is going to be my election map. I think this is how it's going to end up. As I mentioned, North Carolina, the governor is going to be a Democrat, but I think most people are going to vote for Donald Trump on this election. Again, this is I am subject to be 100% wrong and look ridiculous a few days after the election, because again, just if Kamala wins Pennsylvania, she wins the election, super narrow margin. But let's say she doesn't win Pennsylvania, but she wins Georgia and she wins Nevada. She also wins that way as well. So there's multiple ways the Democrats can win. So I would leave it as that. I don't. It's very difficult to make predictions. It's at the end you have to put yourself out there and based on all the information that you see and see what happens. So I'll close the video with that.